This podcast is brought to you by Appalachia Intermediate Unit 8, serving Blair, Bedford, Cambria, and Somerset counties in central Pennsylvania. IU8 provides services, consulting, and training to support every school and district in our region with customized learning solutions. This episode is part of our Emerging Technology Initiative, connecting educators with professional development, consultations, and AI services. If it resonates with you, please follow, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review to help us reach more educators in our region and beyond. Schools or districts needing AI guidance, policy support, or coaching, reach out to Matt Karabinos at m-karabinos@iu08.org or visit iu08.org to explore our full services guide.
I am going to start this one by referencing a movie. It's become a thing with Tracy and I here where I reference a movie. So the movie I'm going to reference today is one that I find myself referencing a lot over and over again, is the movie Step Brothers. And in the movie Step Brothers, they meet each other, they become really good friends, and there's the iconic scene of, did we just become best friends? Do you want to go do karate in the garage? Yes, all of that. So the person that we get to talk to today is another one of those friends that I have met through social media. And yes, today we're going to go do some karate in the garage. Welcome to the Curve Ahead podcast. I am your host, Matt Karabinos, and I'm joined today by my co-host,
Tracy. Good to see everybody.
Today we are joined by a special guest, as I mentioned earlier, a friend who we are going to do karate in the garage today. She is a K-12 Instructional Technology Coach. She works for a school district in Berks County. And if you look her up on LinkedIn, you'll see that she's quite involved in the world of AI and education, which is why, as in Step Brothers fashion, we became good friends. So I'm very excited today to welcome Samantha Armstrong to the Curve Ahead. So Samantha, thank you for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me.
So we've crossed paths many times on LinkedIn in random groups, book clubs that we were in there. I had a great time with doing that.
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about your journey to where you got to here and how you got to this place where you are like this AI whisperer, AI voice in your school, in your community.
Wow. All right. I didn't know that. I have to put that in my title now.
The AI whisperer. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. No, thank you so much for having me. I think this actually goes back, we've talked, like you said, on social media and other places, but this starts with mindset. And I think as a teacher in 5th grade in ELA and social studies, literally for a long, long time, we're talking before the year 2000, so you guys can do the math. But the idea of flexible seating, project-based learning, genius hour, opportunities for students to think outside the box, to have a voice, to get that opportunity to do things differently than just playing school. And I do feel like that was a beginning piece that really connects the dots for me, where then I became an instructional technology coach, but truly instructional technology. And when we say that instructional piece, it's always like best practice of pedagogy, making sure things are grounded in what we need to do. But when AI showed up, it was, wait, what? And thinking about the things that are good, bad, and ugly, but also what could I do with interest inventories? I'll just start there because it's a very simple thing, but it always frustrated me beyond words. So 5th grade, beginning of the year, I'm excited. I give them the interest inventory. It's paper and pencil. That's fine. We can use both. And the idea of everybody fills out their favorites. And that's so I can truly honor them. That's either in that 10 for 10 where you're talking to a kid that's having any kind of behavior issues, but you really want to develop that relationship with everybody. But I collected them. I looked at them. And rarely did I actually get to do what I really, really wanted to do. I wanted to personalize it. I wanted to make sure they saw themselves, whether it was a math problem, an English language arts problem, something else we were doing. We're just honoring who they were, nothing academic. And I wanted to do so much more of that. And I really beat myself up inside saying, oh my gosh, like I missed out on this opportunity or that opportunity. once the AI piece came along in such a tiny part of it to me that I'm like, wait, I could have been, and you name the interest, you name the idea. It wasn't automatically looking for mastery. It was looking for connection. It was looking for community. It was looking for ways that I have 24 hours in my day, 2 kids, which now are grown, but at the time also taking master's classes, trying to be a human being, but trying to be the best teacher, and somewhere in the middle, trying to find your way with those kids. And I felt like that was a place that resonated before I even got started.
Awesome.
And then we obviously fast forward to where we are today, going to ISTE a long time ago, 3 years ago, of where does this fit, and just sitting and listening and going to free webinars and talking to people and realizing LinkedIn was something I had never realized could connect all of us in ways where we support each other. And we also can call each other out, but in safe ways of look for this, how this could actually help. Look for this, how this is a risk or something that could be in the way. And talking with Amanda Biggerstaff from AI for Education, I literally messaged her, asked her what things could look like in terms of being, really, really careful, ethical, safe, effective, in how we could start the journey a couple years ago. And then we started talking. And we all do this because we care about our kids, and it's not about us. It's about the world that they're getting, they have, and where we are with this just idea of, how do I know if something is okay, safe, or not? How do I know if this is something that's going to help me or actually do the cognitive offload? So that's the beginning of the journey, and it just gets deeper and deeper.
So I think one really important thing that you said there, and it's something that's a key to all of this, is that you already had the growth mindset going into this from what you were teaching. You already wanted to differentiate. You already wanted to empower, give your students voice. And that's a huge part of it, because not everyone is at that point yet where they have that growth mindset. So the fact that you already had that going into it, I think probably gave you some of the, opportunity to be like excited about AI instead of a little scared.
Yeah. And to your point, I think that's where in any change, it's so important. I took a course through AI for Education, and Cotter's change principles, huge. Psychological safety, huge. If those two things aren't recognized, and change is scary or not, and there's that discomfort, and you're going to live in that simply because you are, and it's nobody's fault. Nobody's an expert. We're all learning from each other, and we're supporting each other. But that, from what you're saying, I didn't realize that until I was an instructional technology coach. So being in the classroom for millions of years, one way of looking at it with co-teachers, but then getting into the coaching and then starting to talk to those teachers, depending upon their ideas of things, it's not that anybody's wrong. You have to honor their entry points, but you also want to give them that foundational knowledge so they know why it does what it does, why it can't do certain things yet, and where we're headed, so that they know that we're going to support them and we're going to listen, but we also have to get through this together and understand, either ignoring it, putting our fingers in our ears and just being like, la, 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 this is going away. This isn't an initiative. This is truly what's happening. And so I think that's the important part, to recognize it, but then also to bring them along and just listen first, talk about where it could fit for you, and it might not. And then we'll walk away and we'll do it another time. But I need them to have that foundational knowledge, if nothing else.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Tracy and I were talking, we really want to pick your brain about how you are implementing it, like the actual nuts and bolts, like how you are doing this stuff, because this is a part. I'm brand new to my position here at the IU8, so I just got here. So part of my position is kind of helping schools figure out how to implement AI literacy with their teachers. I feel like, and you could agree or disagree with me, but I feel like the place that most of us start in that conversation is with the teachers. And then once we build the confidence of the teachers, we can then kind of have the conversation of what can we do for the students and how do we build the foundations for the students. So I'm just really curious, on your journey at your school district, how did you bring this idea of, AI literacy? What types of things do you do with the teachers? Are you, and how did you kind of start the path to implementing this, AI literacy into your school. So how did that go?
It's kind of interesting because what actually happened instead, and this was a lot from AI for Education too, talking about stakeholders. The idea would be to do everything sequentially like we do in school. And clearly, again, this is a demand kind of thing. This just happened to all of us at the exact same moment. So instead, I went to our superintendent and assistant superintendent and our IT director simply because at that point in time, people were talking more tech instead of the instructional piece, just because. So we had to have the conversation, and their secretaries too, because they know everything. Secretaries and custodians are the thing. So talking to them, I needed to sit down with our IT director, with both our super and assistant superintendent at that time, and make sure that we had the same vocabulary. They needed that knowledge because they were saying people are starting to come to them, whether it's at a school board meeting or just seeing them out in the community. Ideally, I would have started that with the community at the same time as well. I don't think I understood enough yet to do that at that moment, and they didn't yet either. So I kind of feel like we're there, we're getting there now. But I started with them, and we just sat and make sure, like, here are the conversations we're going to have. We're going to talk about bias. We're going to talk about hallucinations. We're going to talk about training. We're going to talk about all those things. We're obviously going to play quick draw just because you have to. And make sure that these, again, low entry points that are low risk, but are building their capacity. Because if I'm saying I'm going to be doing this with our teachers, they have to have that same conversation. So if somebody does eventually walk in and see what we're doing, it's transparent. That's my biggest thing. Whether I'm talking emails or with people, you got to have the conversation with everyone. And that's the most important thing. And then once it became, I could do this, then it was 12 teachers. We had them apply, and we did AI empowered classrooms, and truly just said, based on the conversations I was having with vendors, which again, I had 6 specific questions to ask about FERPA, COPPA, everything else. And, where does this go if you go away? Because these were all startups and still are to a point.
Yep.
And what does this look like? And what are you really doing? And the conversations I had with certain vendors were very salesy. And other conversations were we're teachers, you're teachers, here's what we do. I joined every possible thing I could, whatever ambassador group you could come up with from different things. Yes.
Ditto.
But you also know when you're a part of that, you're the product too. You're generating what they're eventually going to see, or the trends and the other things. So there's the business end that's very helpful to know. So our teachers don't have to be taken for a ride. And budget wise, we have to be really fiscally safe and making sure. So I did with those 12 teachers. We made sure we had some from elementary, some from secondary. Elementary was not going to be using devices. They were truly going to be focused on AI literacy. Dr. Nneka McGee has a paper plate activity especially that I'm thinking of, besides other things.
World famous paper plate activity.
And it's so helpful, not just for the kids. The kids already know about these kinds of things in terms of they ask Siri, they ask Alexa, they ask Google. They are used to nobody, just a voice talking, but they believe it right away. And that's the problem. So making sure that it's not going to be cognitive surrender from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade, or even with our teachers saying, okay, what's possible, what's real, what's not, what can we check in other places for too. But the paper plate activity was great for the teachers as well as the kids. And anything I'm doing when I'm going into classrooms, especially those 12, I'm with them, but they're leading. It's what do you need to get to? Where can this fit in process? What actually makes sense? Let's go 5 to 10 minutes. Let's talk about it. Let's also talk about what's not working. And then I follow your lead, but I'm in there with you. So you're not just left to say, good luck, I'll see you later, and ask me how it went. And secondary, we flew with certain teachers who, as you said, Tracy, mindset. It was they could already see where the fourth wall's been broken for forever, and we all go to YouTube to watch things over and over again. Why aren't we letting these types of things into our classrooms, again, safely? And that's really where things took off for secondary for that, but I was able to build a lot more of the literacy and then just go K-12 with that. At the end of that year, I had asked, are we going to expand the cohort? And our assistant superintendent said, nope, you're doing this whole school. And here we are.
Cool.
Whole district, not just school, district.
Wow.
So the 12 that you got to start with, were they already fully bought in with the growth mindset, or were there a couple that were the naysayers that you chose to try and bring along?
That's the interesting thing. This was more about people that were curious, but there was a big difference in where they were. Like elementary was like, don't touch anything, but I need to know, and my kids need to know. And they were right. They totally were right, because we need to develop this slowly, safely, and you can facilitate and show it on your ViewSonic or whatever else if you're working with those ideas when it's appropriate. But the secondary teachers, we had a little bit of both. And we also had the environmental concerns where it would be, if we have the kids do this, is this actually being a good citizen? Are we thinking about all of these different pieces? And so for me, I need to continue to dive into, okay, also all of the paper we're using, all the Gmails, and again, sorry, Matt, TikToks,
Nope.
all of the
Hey.
different things. And what's using this energy is not just these AI platforms. Everything is using it in some way, and everything needs those data centers. So it's not to say one thing's right and one thing's wrong. It's to say, yes, let's be responsible. Here's what it is doing. And what we're doing is not something that's going to be an issue that way, because we're being careful with it. We're not just saying, hey, go into deep research, have a great time for 20 minutes and see what you come up with without you interacting with it. Don't just do it because you can do it.
Yeah.
So, and that
Love
started
it.
it. Don't create a stupid worksheet that was really low level already with just recall or matching. And you're like, look, I made this. It took me 10 minutes the first time, or I got it from Teacher Pay Teachers. Now I can do it in 2 minutes. Well, it doesn't matter. If
Exactly.
it wasn't good practice already, why are we doing it? So I think those are the pieces. We're having those conversations, and that's what happened. It became these conversations about pedagogy we were not having as instructional technology coaches to the extent, but we're so aware, and it's really made that the focal point instead of just saying the technology.
Yeah, and I think that was a part of the conversation. We talked before about the tech lash that is here now, tech backlash, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
Tracy and I just did an episode where that's what we talked about, that where we're, pulling back screen time, putting limits on things, which again, I don't think these are bad things, but what I think is happening, and Tracy brought this up in our last episode, it's not all tech is bad tech. Not all tech has negative uses. And to me, the argument, I'm sure, and I know you've seen this making its rounds on LinkedIn as well, is like the argument is that we were never really introduced properly to how the technology could fit within our pedagogy, right?
Yep.
And you and I have been in many groups and conversations where the discussion of pedagogy was like, I made the comment before in one of these groups where I was like, I have never in my teaching career talked so much about pedagogy. Mm-hmm. It was like a buzzword that you learned in school, in college, and you're like, oh yeah, I got that. And then you never think about it again. You just kind of do stuff and you just teach how you teach.
Yes.
But AI has forced you to come face to face with the pedagogy and forced you to kind of recognize maybe the practices that I was using were not the greatest. And I think that partially played into this kind of fear and negativity around AI and ed tech in general. I think around the tech implementation in general was, if I am doing something, it's almost like you're getting called out for doing something wrong, even though you're not, but you're like, you should be implementing this tech. And some teachers would take that to say, well, what am I doing wrong that I need to implement this, right? So given that, we have all these tech lash things happening now, kind of rolling back. I know in Pennsylvania, we got the handwriting. Now we got to do handwriting, right?
Yes.
And so we can probably have a whole podcast just about the thoughts on handwriting. But the overarching theme that you see is kind of rolling back tech a little bit.
Yep.
And it's kind of funny because we all see in schools, we're trying to roll back tech, but everything after school is like pedal to the metal with tech. And so I'm really curious how, you are kind of balancing that in the classroom. So I love your introduction there of like the elementary programs where it's discussion based, it's activity based, hands-on things. That's the part where when I talk, they don't realize that those are the things that can be done. You don't have to be on a chat bot. You don't have to be in front of the screen to actually like learn how to use AI.
Right.
So like what are you doing now amidst all this? I mean, we're in Pennsylvania, and as well as both of us do that, Pennsylvania is very different. Pretty much every county you go to is vastly different.
Yes.
So like, how are you balancing that in your district?
So I think the funny part is what happened because of all of the sound bites that were going around. We had an asynchronous day where, nobody's allowed to be on anything right towards the end of the school year. And at first, the conversation was going to be everything, literally attendance, buses, you name it, the behind the scenes, the infrastructure, as well as the actual day. And a majority of the things that they were going to be doing were STEM based because, again, you are building, it's the design thinking model and all those things that are good no matter what we're talking about. But then it also had to pull back. And gotcha. I'm going to say no. There we go. Sorry. We're also when we were doing that, they said, well, how would we use the Z passes for the kids' safety for buses? How are we going to put attendance into Infinite Campus? How are we going to? So it wasn't even talking then instructionally. It's saying, what are the pieces that don't make sense for us to be doing manually to get to the relationships, to get to the community building. But then it's also the conversation. It became, wait a second, this is accessibility. This is an issue for our special ed students. This becomes when our L students need to translate something and advocate for themselves with certain platforms, they can do that easily. And then we're really looking at what they're mastering for their content, not the struggle that they're having that's counterproductive. So it became a kind of conversation of it can't really be all or nothing. Moderation's true of anything we talk about. So it really is taking that calculator conversation from years ago where teachers were striking all the way to now. But what are we doing? And what do you see the deliberate and intentional use when we're going to use it here we'll use? Because otherwise they are passive consumers. It's true. You walk by a room, you see kids on a screen, nobody's talking. Hey, they're behaving. No, they're not behaving. They're actually not talking to each other. They're not questioning what they're on. They're not being people with the human in the loop piece that we always talk about. So the big piece that I talked to our curriculum and instruction director for K-12 about is, what does this look like? Well, it actually looks like what we've been using it for already for the AI pieces. But it's not just put them on quizzes, not just play a Kahoot, not just go into your Google Classroom. I've given you all this stuff, now go. Well, where is the interaction? So from the beginning, whether it is like, so say with School AI and that 12th grade class that there's a lot to talk about, but I'll wait right now because I'm not sure if you do or don't want to. It was 5 minutes on and then turn and talk. And it was crickets and it was uncomfortable because they're seniors and they've already played the game of school. Why are you having me talk to somebody? So we had to do it 3 to 4 times before they started to talk. And then they got animated and excited. And then they felt like my 5th graders because I did have some of them. Yeah. But it was amazing to hear and see them own what they were learning. They also were like, Miss Armstrong, like, it's giving me the wrong answer. Well, then tell it that. Oh, can I do that? I'm like, yes, let's do that now. Because these are the pieces you're always driving. You're always going to be in charge. You're never just accepting these pieces because that's part of that embedded literacy. So that becomes the literacy and the fluency piece that become a part of whatever that productive struggle should be. And then when it's time to close it, it's time to close it and have the conversations. And again, you are writing. You always have something with you. You're always citing evidence. You're always using something else. You're not just on the screen. So I do feel like we've already set a lot of those frameworks clearly where they understand that. If it's not deliberate and intentional, we're not doing it. And we'll see where that goes over the summer. You know, when we're talking about PD, that's July 1st. We had that conversation. Nice. I've got everything like a longitudinal plan ready to go. We'll see what fits, but getting in rooms and supporting and listening is the key, whether we're talking tech or not.
Yeah.
I think something you said there is very key, the everything in moderation, because in education, we have a tendency to 0 to 60 and then back to 0 and then back to 60. And there's somewhere in the middle that we need to be with this. And it typically
Yep.
takes us a couple years to find that middle ground. So I like to hear
Yes.
that moderation piece. Yes, it's great for kids to collaborate. They don't need to be teaching each other every single minute of every single day in every single class. They don't need to be on screens every single minute of every single day in every single class. And so that does help with the breaking that part of it up.
Yeah, it's huge. And I think we have to honor that, because then that's also honoring teachers' expertise. We're not saying, hey, get to the side, I'm going to show you how this works. That's not it. But also questioning the vendors, questioning the platforms. I need to talk more to a specific one that we're saying, okay, I get the fact that you're pushing these things out, but give us a second. Let us look at it for a second so we can scaffold it, so it can be a gradual release, even though we know things are out there for real, but we need to have the conversations too. And that's an interesting place to be right now. So I'll let you know how that goes once we talk.
Yeah. I was going to say, so if you wouldn't mind,
Sure.
you brought this up a couple times. And so I want to hone in on this a little bit. What are those questions that you ask the vendors?
Basically, it's 6 questions. I don't have them right in front of me right now, but what it is again, where does this information go? Is it training the model? The pieces that we know in general would be happening then. For the third party pieces, again, making sure that if you would go out of business, who gets this? And having those conversations, which again are uncomfortable but necessary.
Right.
Also, what exactly is this based on? When we're talking about the science of learning, it's a very different conversation than look at all the points that you're earning. Look at all the gamification pieces, which are fun, that no question. But again, what is the actual, what is the purpose? And when I get the sales pitch and the sales pitch only, and the other thing is, how will you allow pilots to work? There were companies specifically that said it's district-wide, you don't have a choice. And because we also had ESSER funds, that was the thing. At that moment, it was, you can put it towards this. And then, of course, that went away. So now what happens? So that was never in the cards. I wasn't going to go that direction because that goes away.
Right.
But what is sustainable and what can grow as we feel comfortable with it? And there were 2 vendors that were completely open to the idea of, you only have 12. That's great. That's actually a good thing to have that conversation. But they were also educators. Right. They have their sales team, don't get me wrong, but they listen to these questions thoughtfully. The ones that did not listen thoughtfully were getting through the sales pitch and great products. Not that there's anything wrong with the product, but you can't tell me to have my entire district sign up for something we haven't vetted yet. We don't have any use cases for.
Absolutely.
We can't do any of that yet. And thank you so much for your time. But right now, no, thank you.
Yep. But right now we're going to move on. And and you brought up a really important point. I just talked about this on a past episode as well, about, the difference, and you can tell the difference when you talk to a product that teachers are involved in the making of.
Yes.
You can tell that teachers were in the room helping them make the decisions for when the buttons were made, when the interactive things were happening.
Exactly.
You can tell teachers were in the room.
Yep.
So I think you hit that very perfectly. And I think that section right there, if we have any of our tech directors and our instructional technology coaches, they're taking notes there, because I know that a lot of our districts have, tech directors. Some of ours actually do not. So some of them actually we what's the word, Tracy?
Outsource?
They outsource, yes, to a company. And so the company kind of runs their IT. But you have a gap, right? So you have a gap there where this company knows the IT, the tech stuff really well. And if you don't have a leadership team who is also tech savvy or tech forward, then there's a gap there between, is the tech, good or bad for all the safety and compliance reasons versus is the tech good or bad for all the instructional pedagogical reasons as well. So, and that was another kind of purpose, I guess, of me, is like kind of helping the schools that don't have that person in between to fill that gap. So kind of like a traveling instructional tech coach, kind of like a traveling, person that does that. So go
But
ahead,
that's
Tracy.
it. You need to know that behind the scenes. So when I said we're all the ambassadors and all the other fun names, we need to do that so we can play. But
Yeah.
I saw a big difference between those, which were kind of curating content. And again, so be it, but again, for free. And that's not bad because we do things for free. That's
Right.
where we are. We're not in this to be millionaires. But at the
Yeah.
same time, there would be like a play lab where I attended that and went through their cohort. And that was truly dive deep, democratize this, make sure to talk about what you can actually design and develop together and meet with them and talk with them along the way simply to do it.
Right.
That's it. And that is such a different piece. And that didn't become a vendor like we're going to go search you out. Now it's how can we build your capacity
Right.
as an educator for others? And that benefit mindset. I mean, through and through, you see that where it fits and it resonates. So sorry, Tracy.
No, you're
Did
fine.
All good.
So as we are, having these discussions and, moving forward with things, I feel like there's another big stakeholder that we need to include in this conversation, which is, of course, the parents and the community. And you had mentioned that a little bit. Were you able to get parent and community buy-in? Or has it been, a push-pull? What does that look like for you within your community?
We are lucky in some ways that we do have some of our teachers are parents of kids in our district. So it actually kind of started there. But over and over again, even from the very beginning, we were saying, stakeholders, it's everybody and it is parents and it's the kids. Let's be honest, it's got to be the students as well, when we're talking more secondary for sure. But that idea of including how they're feeling, because this isn't us versus them. And I think too often in education, we come up with our initiatives and eventually we tell the families. And I do think that's where some of the tech lash does come in. So it does make sense, and it, rightfully so, to question why didn't we know? But again, not the all or nothing. So with our families, we're working with our family and outreach community coordinator, and she does a lot for translation in our district to really make sure that we have everybody on the same page. And then making sure our social workers, we have a social worker in each of our buildings. So they're administrators that are available anytime to any student. And making sure to work with them as well as our assistant superintendent. And I'm actually meeting with them this week. And we're talking about what are the opportunities where we can work. And Dr. Nneka McGee and I actually talked. She had a different lighthouse kind of activity going on. I happened to show up and I got one-on-one, so I was very excited. But she had talked about how do you include your community? Because if you just make it a tech night or an AI night or a this night, you're not going to get people. Or you're going to get the same people over and over again. And again, it's not somebody's fault because they could be working second or third shift. It's not automatically you don't want to be present. It's like you might be doing other things. But you don't want that to come across as a negative. So what we're going to do, and again, this is in the podcast and we haven't done this part yet, but before a concert, before that, give me 10 minutes. I don't need more than that. And I don't want it to be something you don't need or want, but I need it to be that open invitation. We have a digital wellness piece that we've worked with our L Nights, and we did share that where it's working with Day of AI, it's working with Common Sense Media, but it's giving them those family toolkits and other things that are not just AI, but also digital wellness in general. Like you need to say to your student, and we actually had a meeting with parents where they were, I don't think it was surprised, but just you have to catch yourself no matter who we are. Oh my gosh, I was checking the weather for 5 minutes and now I've been on my phone for 30. I need to put this down and physically put it down in front of them because it's this divided attention. Our kids are seeing that, so they're like, oh, that's okay. And we're modeling so much without saying anything that if we can even have that conversation, or isn't that strange how, Alexa said that and she was wrong? Well, first of all, it's not a she. Those kinds of things that can be so little but so important, and they can go from K-12. So a lot of our families may or may not have that because, oh my gosh, to throw this all at a family on top of everything else you're doing is bonkers.
Yeah,
It's
agreed.
crazy. So it's necessary to listen and then share what they need, which is basically, again, too, what you do with kids when they ask a question. What is it you really need this minute?
Yeah.
And if you want to go further, I'm here for you. If you don't want to go further right now, I'm just going to give you this piece. So that's what we've orchestrated in small groups so far, but we really want to move forward. And we need the naysayers as well as people that are on board because we are in that world of all or nothing. So,
Right.
what does this look like? And what are we doing to be responsible and intentional to empower your student, not to have them just sitting and passively consuming because they can do that doom scrolling anytime.
Oh yeah. And I'll tell you what, it's kind of funny because I don't even know how to lead into our curve closer here, but like you
She just did the empower
she
part.
has legitimate no, this is what I was saying. She has legitimately like covered almost each element of the curve framework
Yes.
as we were going through this podcast, actually calling most of them out by name. Empowerment and voice.
Curiosity.
So with that being said, we developed the curve framework here at the IU8, and the point behind it for us was to help with that mindset shift. You talked about that at the beginning, and that was how I came in here, was we need to have a mindset shift as to how AI gets integrated into what we do, how we think about working with it, and how we think about using it. So the curve framework, it stands for curiosity, understanding, reflection, voice, and empowerment. So out of those elements, you've mentioned a bunch of them, but like which one, or I guess we can open this, which one or ones resonate with you the most?
I'm actually really glad you asked because we had talked initially and I said reflection right away. Like it wasn't even a question. But now that I've had time to really dive in, it's reflection and voice. I think the pieces of the reflection, again, when it even says that, who benefits, who could be harmed, what are the consequences, intended and unintended. I think that we talk about metacognition, like you said in class, and we talk about all these pieces, but if we're not thinking about our thinking and are thinking about our thinking with this specific part, everything will just be the social media part that we dealt with and didn't address correctly. And again, hindsight's 2020, but the reflection piece, I think, again, that before, during, after, we also want that for our kids. So I've created, I know other people, Mike Kentz has created a really, really good before, during, and after kind of journal idea. And I've presented it and they're like, oh, that would be too much writing. I'm like, okay, let's quiet it down a little bit. Let's just have a conversation about it. But you want them to write. So we could do handwriting and that at the same time.
There you go.
But it's so necessary because, again, we're fostering that thinking about your thinking. Voice is the biggest piece now. I feel like, again, that authentic communication of the use cases, like the seniors who were working with the student senate, by the time we were actually getting them to Harrisburg to get in front of senators to talk about how they were going to amend bills, but they were not sitting in front of a computer, but they had the muscle memory. They practiced the back and forth, but they also practiced it with each other. So that student ownership is 2000% true if you embed what you're doing in process. If you're saying, look at what I made, sure, that's great. But again, please don't put your image into ChatGPT just because you can. And then here you are, 10 years old, and we have to figure that out because now you're going out and training the model. So the voice is so important. Like, how is it yours authentically? And that's where our kids are so important. That's why I picked this one too, because we've had kids that are like, I'm not going to do that. I'm like, okay, if you aren't going to do it this way, give them another option. That is their right. But could you watch the other person drive? Meaning, can you look over their shoulder and talk to each other as you go? You don't have to type a thing. You could even share what you're thinking out loud. And if you want them to put it into this conversation, great. If you don't, just at least pay attention to it. Hear what they're saying to each other. So I think we have to honor our kids that are pushing back. And that's okay, because they're actually advocating for themselves for something different possibly than what we're saying. But that specific girl came back then. It was like, can I do this with you? I said, if you feel comfortable. If you don't want to, here is where we're headed. So I think, again, it isn't always about the tool by any means. It's about what is it enhancing? What is it empowering? How is it actually getting me to something I couldn't have done? That's where the voice is so important. And if we leave out our kids as well as our families, like Tracy was saying, it really doesn't go anywhere because it's not ours. It's not owned by the community, but there's going to be bad things and we need to talk about those too. And that's okay. I think we have to really address everything you said for reflection because that's going faster than any of us can keep up with.
I knew that you were going to be an amazing podcast guest for this show.
Thank you.
Samantha, thank you so much for sharing your story, your journey. I know that if there was ever an episode that I am going to try to push like crazy to our school districts, it's this one. Because you gave so many useful, practical, strategies, tools, actual things that school districts, teachers, and our schools can do. So thank you so much for being so gracious and sharing your time with us today.
Thank you. It was great. And it's just, again, a conversation that's going to keep going. So we'll keep talking.
Yeah. And I was going to say, what's usually probably going to happen with most of these podcast guests here, Tracy, is we're probably going to have a part 2 somewhere down the road and see where did it go from here? And how did that plan that you were thinking about, where did it end up, and things like that. So
Absolutely.
It's just wonderful to be able to make those connections and have those conversations and share this treasure trove of information with the schools in our region. So thank you so much again.
Thank you.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Curve Ahead podcast, and we had our wonderful guest today, Samantha Armstrong, joining us today. And we learned so much information that you can take and apply to any situation in your school district, in your classroom, even in your personal life as well. So we really appreciate her joining us. And so with that being said, I am Matt Karabinos, and remember that AI might be the engine, but you are the engineer.
Tracy Rains, and the curve ahead is yours to navigate.
Thank you, everybody.
This podcast is brought to you by Appalachia Intermediate Unit 8, serving Blair, Bedford, Cambria, and Somerset counties in central Pennsylvania. IU8 provides services, consulting, and training to support every school and district in our region with customized learning solutions. This episode is part of our Emerging Technology Initiative, connecting educators with professional development, consultations, and AI services. If it resonates with you, please follow, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review to help us reach more educators in our region and beyond. Schools or districts needing AI guidance, policy support, or coaching, reach out to Matt Karabinos at m-karabinos@iu08.org or visit iu08.org to explore our full services guide.